Hello everyone, I am Norini Tang from Bachelor of Elementary Education 2, and today I will discuss to you my case study entitled The School and the Community Relationships. Executive Summary. A strong partnership between the school and the surrounding community leads to school success. Schools can be more successful with community involvement and engagement than in functioning in isolation. Community engagement leads to greater academic achievements of students. Utilizing qualitative case study methods, this study focused on the perspective of school and community partners on building relationships. The purpose of this study was to describe and explain selected participants' perspectives on how a school builds partnership with the community. I studied the relationship between an elementary school and community partners that have been in existence for at least 3 years to better understand each participant's view of the partnership. The social constructivism theoretical framework was used to better understand how effective partnerships are built and maintained. As the researcher, my goal was to study the diverse significance the participants had established for their contribution in school and community partnerships based on their subjective experiences. Specifically, with this study, I attempted to answer the questions. First, what are the characteristics of collaborative relationship? As the researcher, my goal was to study the diverse significance the participants had established for their contribution in school and community partnerships based on their subjective experiences. Specifically, with this study, I attempted to answer these questions. First, what are the characteristics of a collaborative relationship between a school and the surrounding community that are essential in order to build partnerships that meet the goals of each participant involved? Second, what are the roles of a school leader, support staff, and community members in building relationships between the school and the community? I also aimed at determining how the school leadership directly relates to and affects the partnerships building process between the school and the community partners. 3 major themes emerged as a result of the data gathered. Building a solid infrastructure emerged as a foundation of strong partnership between the school and the community. Adhering to mandated policy, focusing on student-centered goals, and working within systems were vital elements of building a solid infrastructure. Defining clear rules also emerged as instrumental. The role of the principal, school staff, and community were clearly defined. Demonstrating collaborative character traits emerged as a third that was necessary to build a positive relationship. The meaning that the community partners and school staff have put on building relationships became apparent. Fostering authentic community engagement and communities that leads to expected outcomes for all stakeholders involved is most productive when schools and community members work together. The purpose of this study is to describe and explain selected participants' perspectives on how a school builds partnerships with the community. I describe and explain the relationship between the school and the community partners based on how each individual participant has socially constructed her knowledge of the partnership. I conducted a case study in order to understand the complex social happenings within its real-life context. I relied on 4 major techniques in this case study. The first is interviews with community partners, school personnel, and school administrators. I utilize a social constructivism theoretical framework to examine the literature. Social constructivism is based on Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. I have in particular explained Vygotsky theory as it relates to community partnerships. Viewing partnerships from a social constructivist perspective gives a better understanding of why community members invest their time and resources into schools. Introduction. Community is a part of the society, and education is the counterpart of both. School is the social institute where consciously designed learning experiences are provided with objectives of achieving social aim at large over a period of time. Teachers truly are the backbone of society. They are role models to children, offer guidance and dedication, and give the young people the power of education. Because of teachers, countries are able to further develop socially and economically. Building capacity between a school and the community requires strong principal leadership and belief in community engagement. Teacher openness and understanding of the surrounding community is important in order for partnerships to be successful. The literature supports the proposition that community engagement leads to greater academic achievements of students. Schools can be more successful with community involvement and engagement than in functioning in isolation. The community has historically been involved in the operations of schools. Community involvement can be tracked back to the 19th century when neighborhood schools were influenced by the public, including churches. Government authority over education grew as a result of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which focused money on poverty and low-performing schools. Each reauthorization since the original Act 1965 outlined the importance of community involvement. The No One Child Left Behind Act of 2001 is the most recent reauthorization of ESEA and mandates schools to build family and community partnerships. The belief is that students benefit by receiving extra support that leads to improved academic achievement. Schools and community members must work together to promote positive relationships that leads to improved students' achievement. Strong school leadership is vital in order for school and community partnerships to be effective. Transformational school leaders who create a culture of collaboration in which the value of a stakeholder input is appreciated are more successful in obtaining desired outcomes. Teachers and other key participants are equally important in supporting the collaborative vision of the school. Principal leadership, in combination with support from teachers and faculty, can work together to build and maintain strong relationships with community members that lead to shared vision of student success. Literature review. In this section, I explored the literature to examine the importance of school and community partnerships, descriptions of various types of partnerships, as well as the role of leadership in building and sustaining successful school and community partnerships. Figure 1 illustrates the categories of literature that were reviewed. The literature review suggests that schools are more successful when there is a strong partnership between the school and the surrounding community. I begin the literature review by describing school and community partnerships, which entails utilizing the literature to define the term community as well as what constitutes a community partnership. In addition, I include characteristics of successful partnerships in the description. Understanding partnerships requires a detailed analysis of the historical relationship that is developed between schools and the community since the inception of the concept. Another element in describing partnerships is examining the literature on the outcomes and benefits that transpire when schools and their communities work together to support education. The second category of literature that I identified is types of school and community partnerships. Numerous variations of types of partnerships exist and can be unique to each individual school. For the purpose of this research, I focus on 3 types of partnerships which delineate various ways in which schools can work in conjunction with the community to meet the needs of the students. Forming a partnership between school and the community requires individuals to serve a role in the process and to be involved in the maintenance of the relationship. The third category of literature that I reviewed was the individual roles in partnerships. The role of leaders and teachers at the school are important in understanding the literacy involved in relationships with community partners. According to the literature, the K participants at the school and within the community organization also play significant roles in building successful partnerships. It is imperative to comprehend the roles that individuals play in making the partnership between the school and the community one that thrives. Community partnerships can mean different things for different individuals. The literature supports the concept that successful partnerships lead to prosperous outcomes for students. Building positive relationships between the school and the community can lead to improved the student achievement. This is also support that premise that community partnerships are part of the various system that affects students and their families. It is imperative to examine the role of community and school community partnerships. Community partnerships are known to be beneficial to students and schools. Community partnerships often target parents' involvement, but others' community support is also vital to school success. Methodology. I utilize qualitative research in order to gather in a deep understanding of the perspective of the participants in school and community partnerships. In particular, I choose to conduct a case study on elementary school in order to answer the guiding questions I propose. I remained cognizant of my role as a researcher and reflected on the influence had on the participants. I opted to concentrate on 4 sets of data collection. First is interviews, second is documents related to the study, third, field notes, and fourth is a researcher reflective journal. I utilize these tools in order to come up with the common themes and the perspective of building effective school and community partnerships. Qualitative research occurs in a natural setting where the researcher gathers an understanding of the participants' experiences from the realities that surround them. The goal is to understand the social setting that is being studied in order to get a holistic view of the relationship within the system. I utilize multiple sources of data to discover themes that emerge as I conducted the research. As the researcher, I serve as the instruments of inquiry as I made interpretations of the data throughout the process. I believe that qualitative research lead me to a better understanding of the interactions between the school members and the community. In particular, the case study methodology is one form of qualitative research in which allowed me to study a single case and perform in-depth analysis. Utilizing a case study methods, I examined elementary in-depth. Case studies are used to understand complex social happenings within a real-life context. In case study, the investigator explores a specific case over time, utilizes multiple sources of data, and reports case description based on themes. These types of research allows the investigator to preserve the most meaningful characteristics of the real-life events. One advantage of case study research is that it allows the researchers to examine both the uniqueness and commonality of a single case. It also has an extensive, well-known history across multiple disciplines. The interest lies in the process and context of an event instead of the outcomes. One of the challenges of case study methodology in choosing which specific case study that will answer the researcher's questions. Another challenge is gathering enough information to assure the presentation of an in-depth picture of the case. Studying Stalisai Elementary through the use of case study research shed light on how the school functions under ordinary environments in regards to building and maintaining community partnerships. It allowed a descriptive presentation of the data, a true understanding in the case. Rubin and Rubin of 2005 used the term conversational partner to describe the relationship between the interviewer and the interviewee. A conversational partner has an active role in leading discussion and is valued as an expert in the interviewed. A relationship develops between the interviewer and conversational partner based on congeniality and respect. This fits with the social constructivism perspective in that my interaction with the interviewee influences the experience, which is socially constructed. I developed a relationship with those that I interviewed as they were active participants in shaping the interview. The individuals involved from the school as well as from the surrounding community have formed ideas about their role in the education of children. These ideas have evolved from social and historical events in their lives. My goal as a researcher was to examine the various meanings of the participants have established for their involvement in school and community partnerships based on their subjective experiences. My focus was on the individuals and their cognitive processes that lead them to form their view in school and community partnerships. I also studied how the school's leadership directly relates to and affects the relationship building process between the school and community partners. In this chapter, I describe in detail the methods I use to collect data on the prospective school and community partnerships. I reiterate the research questions and describe the design of my study. I also make clear a theoretical framework which is the basis of this study. I give details about the role of the researcher and discuss the ethical considerations of the study. The techniques used to analyze the data collected are clarified in detail.